episode 165 of the Author Stories podcast. I'm your host, Hank Garner.
Hey there, Author Story listeners. This is Kevin Tomlinson from Draft to Digital, and I know that you have a book sitting there just waiting to get out to the world, and you're kind of wondering what the next steps are. So that's why you need to go visit drafttodigital.com/authorstories. That's draft2digital.com/authorstories. And that's where you're going to find all the help you need to go from having a book on your hard drive to having it on someone's Kindle or iPad or other reading device. So go visit drafttodigital.com/authorstories right now.
Thanks for joining me each week as I do this podcast. I hope you get as much out of it as I do. It is a real joy to bring you these interviews each and every week. Find all of the archives of the show, and there's a ton, at hankgarner.com. And while you're there, if you would click over in the right-hand sidebar on one of these subscribe links, it would really help. It helps to boost us in the rankings at iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher Radio and YouTube and all of the great places where you can find the best author interviews on the internet. I'd really like to thank my wonderful sponsors for making it possible for me to bring you the show each week. If you appreciate the show, please go to the show notes, hankgarner.com, and find the episode that you're listening to, and click on the links to these sponsors. Show them some love, and let them know that you appreciate what they do to bring these great interviews to you. ThirdScribe.com is there to connect readers and writers. Writers, you need an author platform. You need to. You never know what's going to happen from one retailer to another, and you need to build up your presence on the web. ThirdScribe can help you do that. They can help you sell your books. They can help you connect with readers. They can do it all for you. And readers, if you're looking for new authors to connect with, go visit ThirdScribe.com. They can help you out. Tales from the Canyons of the Damned is the best pulp revival series out there. And not only is it great pulpy goodness, but you know what? Daniel Arthur Smith really puts his heart and passion into the series. You can tell by the cover art that is absolutely collectible. Go check out not only these phenomenal stories, but the excellent packaging that Daniel puts into it. Also, the Valentine's special is out now. Go pick it up. It is nuts. I grabbed it the other day, read it from cover to cover. Speaking of the cover, you have to collect these covers. The Valentine's cover is, just go check it out, okay? Click on the link in the show notes and go pick up the latest Valentine's special of Tales from the Canyons of the Damned. Also, did you know that my buddies Jason Anspach and Nick Cole have created a new project called Galactic Outlaws? Go to galacticoutlaws.com. They're creating some new fiction that is a little bit Star Wars, a little bit Space Cowboy, and it's pretty awesome. There are 3 different subscription levels, and go check out how you can get this new series that they're putting out as they write it. So go check out galacticoutlaws.com. Also, stay tuned right after the episode. There's going to be a short clip from Richard Gleaves, General of the Dead, and pick up his entire Jason Crane series. The first trilogy is finished. So, if you're like me, you don't like to really jump into a book until it's all wrapped up. But that is complete, and I named General of the Dead one of my favorite books of last year. So stay tuned right after the episode for a short clip from that. Thank you for listening. With the oppressive transport authority controlling every aspect of their existence, Leah and her father do what they can to carve out a good life for themselves. Leah spends her nights scavenging and risking capture as she hunts for salvage her father can trade for food and clothing. When Leah takes a bag of salvage from a dying stranger, she and her father are plunged into the world of transport and its war against the terrorist organization, Trace. As transport closes in, Leah will need to decide who she can trust and how far she's prepared to go to save her father's life. The Girl in the City by Philip Harris is the first book in a thrilling dystopian science fiction trilogy set in Michael Bunker's world of Pennsylvania. If you enjoyed books like The Hunger Games and Divergent, you'll love The Girl in the City and its sequels, The Girl in the Wilderness and The Girl in the Machine. All 3 books are available now on Amazon Kindle. Check the show notes for a link. A thirst for revenge sends one man on a deadly journey through the galaxy in the adrenaline-pumping new novel, Galactic Satori Chronicles. Written by Nick Breaker and Paul E. Hicks, this raucous sci-fi adventure introduces Asher, a young man whose world is turned upside down when he discovers that his fiance's death has been directly caused by an imminent alien invasion. In a desire to better understand humans in order to destroy them, these aliens are projecting their consciousness onto unsuspecting men and women, and in the process are learning exactly how to use humanity's own selfishness and greed as weapons against them. Fueled by emotions that the aliens will never understand, Asher bands together with a group of friends. These 4 MIT co-eds are more than meets the eye and go to battle with those who are intent on destroying our planet. Asher takes the fight from Earth to an alien spaceship and back again. A fight that will either save the planet or doom it. The first installment in an upcoming series, Galactic Satori Chronicles, is an engrossing look at the manipulation of time, mental projection, futuristic technology, and of course, aliens. By Nick Breaker and Paul E. Hicks. Pick up Galactic Satori Chronicles now on Amazon. Link in the show notes. Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. So, as most of you know, we've been doing a series of podcasts, the Writers' Workshops, and I try to do them on Fridays. They're a little sporadic from time to time because I use these shows to really focus on a particular topic and subject that interest me and that I hope interest you. And hopefully we can bring some information that will empower authors, and also maybe give some of the listeners out there who maybe are not authors or maybe not authors yet, kind of a glimpse into the other side of books and how things work. Back in episode 16, I believe it was, Rob McClellan, a friend of mine and founder and head of Third Scribe, joined me. And Rob and I talk frequently, off and on, about different things. And we realized that it had been 2 years since Rob had been on the show. A lot has changed since then. Things seem to be changing almost on a daily basis in the world of publishing. And we thought it would be good to have Rob back on and kind of talk about what's new and what's going on. So welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you. It's great to be back. I like you said, I almost couldn't believe it's been 2 years. So time flies.
I know, it's crazy, man. So much has happened in that time. It's a little scary.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
So maybe, and not maybe, we have tons of new listeners since that point in time, and maybe some folks haven't made their way all the way back through the archives to listen to that show. Give everybody a little bit of background on who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, I am the founder of Third Scribe, and Third Scribe is, I guess, what we would classify as a book social network, but I think it's probably more of an author tool when you really get into it, in that it provides a lot of support for authors, but that shouldn't detract from the fact that there's a lot of things for readers. But unlike other social networks, we aren't advertising based. So that's why I say we are an author tool, because authors pay to be a part of the service. So we want to make sure that they're taken care of.
Sure.
And so we provide a wider range of services for authors, actually. And we have, book social structure, interactive book pages, author websites. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive.
In this era of kind of web services and things like that, where people become accustomed to not paying for things. Everybody uses Facebook and it's free, and then we get upset when Facebook changes something, and we completely ignore the fact that someone's giving us something for free monetarily, although there is always in exchange. You're giving up something to use their service, and it may be privacy, it may be the captured time on your eyeballs that they're then using to sell ads and all of that. Talk a little bit about the difference in your model, and because you did make that differentiation there just a minute ago. It is a tool. It's something that you're building value in because people are paying for it, and not just a throwaway service that they're getting for free.
Yes. Okay. There's certainly a free tier. I don't think that any service on the web can escape without a free tier. So for readers, it's of course always free, and they have member pages, and they can create books and manage their library and do all that stuff for free as much as they like. For authors, there is also a free tier, but when you start paying, you get a vastly different range of services. So with the free tier, it's much like you would see at Facebook. You can make book clubs, which is something we introduced this year, which are a lot like a Facebook page or a group. You can, of course, load your own books. You get an author, kind of an author page, which sort of summarizes your profile and your books. But when you start paying, you now have a free website. Well, not a free website, but you have the website that you pay for, that has all kinds of services that most people pay for, and sometimes pay quite a lot for on the open market. And then as you get into standard and premium tiers, it really goes up another level. And I think we provide a level of support and service that really is kind of unheard of for anyone else. But we can do that because we don't have this free tier. We're not trying to float millions of people for free and cover that bandwidth. So while we don't have millions of people in the service, we're financially solvent. And I think that that's a big deal for social networks now. And because of that, we're beholden to the people that pay us. And the people that pay us are not advertisers. The people that pay us are authors that use the service. So we want to make sure that they're taken care of, that they have the tools that they need. We're always refining tools. Most of what we make goes into the reinvestment of the tools that we provide, to keep them current and to make sure that they function.
Gotcha. What are you seeing? We talked earlier about how things have changed, and it's been a crazy couple of years. There's a lot of turmoil right now with authors that have been happily in the Amazon only boat, and a lot of people are going wide. I know I posted on Facebook that I was doing that with my books. Some of that's prompted by some of the changes that have happened recently with the way that a lot of authors will write stories for anthologies, and then after a designated time you get the rights back to that story and then publish it on your own. And it's been a pretty common practice that people would take that story and then republish it. And short stories do fairly well in Kindle Unlimited, and you generate some page reads there, but Amazon has cracked down on that, not allowing people to have stories published in an anthology and standalone. And so that's one change that's kind of got a lot of people talking now. But what have you seen since starting Third Scribe? Because you do have your ear to the ground with all of the things going on in publishing, so that you can support authors more effectively. Kind of what do you see changing, and what have you seen change over these last couple of years?
Well, one thing that's really happened, I'd say almost primarily over the last 5 or 6 months, has been a growing disillusionment, I guess, with Amazon. And if you told someone a year ago, they would have told you were crazy. that Amazon is awesome, and it's nothing better. And why would we ever not be Kindle exclusive? And a majority of the books that are on ThirdScribe, since many of them are, owned by the authors, and the authors provide their own purchase links. We don't provide purchase links. They only, basically use, Kindle, Amazon, and Audible. So that's a large portion of the, the purchase links that are on the system. But for the ones that don't, there's still quite a good bit of clicks that go on. And but what we're doing is we pay attention to them and we listen to them, is that more and more have asked us about going wide and how do I update my page so I can change my links and that type of thing. And so we've seen it change. And I also see other services kind of popping up now. I think Books to Read is a neat little universal link service that Drafted Digital kind of has expanded into. And I think that they're trying to leverage that ability. They're saying, hey, we can help you go wide. BookBub is now starting to, I don't think they've come out with an official policy, but Scuttlebutt has that if your book isn't wide, you're not going to get a BookBub ad, and that was a powerful tool for quite a while. And I'm sure still is a very powerful tool. And so there's a lot of sort of these subtle changes, and I don't know how much of it is factual and how much of it is perceived. But the feeling is definitely that Amazon isn't the, end-all be-all that people would have thought that people thought it was a year ago. And I see a lot more people wanting to expand into, going wide, as we call it. And I think that's going wide is tough. I think that it's a really different structure, and it really kind of it forces you to think a lot, I think, about your platform and your audience and marketing on your own. And it's kind of an interesting thing. I think a number of authors are going to start kind of figuring out, how much of a business they want to make out of this.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of where I was leading to with that question, is that, if you followed publishing in the last 5, 6, maybe 7 years, that may be stretching it a little bit, but you had this golden era, this wave of kind of the ebook revolution that was led by the Kindle and all of that stuff. And we hear all of these stories of authors that, had these phenomenal, overnight success stories. And I think we've all heard those stories, and people that got in at just the right time. And then new people coming in, are trying to recreate that kind of thing. And so you've got services like BookBub and things like that, where you could, create a little bit of lightning in the bottle, but not quite like it was. And one of the things that you see is people kind of jumping from one gimmick to another, trying to kind of jumpstart the success. And I'd like for you to talk about the importance of building that author platform. Yes, it is a tough thing to go from Kindle to wide. Well, first off, you've got a lot more audience that you're going to be dealing with, and how do we communicate with these people on different platforms? And so you've got that. You've also got the revenue stream of Kindle Unlimited. A lot of folks are going to lose 40, maybe 60% of their income that came from those Kindle Unlimited page reads. So how do we get people to think about the long game again, and take control of their marketing, take control of their presence, instead of just bouncing from one thing to the next, trying to find the thing that works?
I think that the long game is really kind of hitting it on the head, and that's really hard for a lot of people to do, especially in this day and age. Like, we really want kind of this instant satisfaction. I think that's one of the hugest allures of Facebook, and of any social network, that's structured like that. But Facebook's a huge one in that you post something and someone clicks on it and you feel that feedback. You feel happy. It's very immediate. But that doesn't mean it's kind of like sugar, like yes, it's great to have
hitting
a little,
those pleasure
little hit of
zones.
sugar, but that's not a meal, and that's not going to sustain you long term. And so there's difficulty. I think that the real crux to think about with your author platform is that a platform kind of is a lot of things. And I remember we wrote a post about it a lot of times, trying to explain everything that people think a platform is. They'll say it's your social media reach, it's your website, it's your newsletter, it's your readership, it's your this, it's your that, it's all kinds of things. And to be honest, it's all of those things. But if you really want to boil it down to, your platform is your ability to consistently reach your readers and get some feedback, get an action. So as social media changes, this alters too. In the early days of Facebook, say in 2010, which isn't that early in Facebook's lifetime, but 2012 they made huge changes to their algorithm, and they went far more into advertising. So in 2010, 2011, around the time of the Kindle boom, there were a lot of people really accumulating Facebook page, followers, and they used to get tons. Hundreds of thousands. Some of the authors have, absolutely mind-blowing numbers. But now it's very hard to reach them without paying through the nose, without really paying.
Right.
And because that was kind of Facebook's model. You pre-cleared people that want to hear your message, and now you have to pay to reach them.
Right.
And so...
Oh, and there's nothing more frustrating than sharing something, and when you have several thousand people, and you see a post that says this has been seen by 44 people,
exactly,
or something like that.
We've all seen it. Matter of fact, people found that they have more success when they share it as a personal individual. But even then, all of your friends aren't seeing it, and your friends' friends aren't seeing it. It's a small subsection. They say, 6% is kind of like the average number of your viewers. So
yeah,
you're working pretty hard for 6%, and that's because Facebook wants to make money, and they're really good at it. But that's a real example of how that's not really your platform. It's kind of it's an advertising service, but you can't really say that Facebook is an organic platform to you, because you don't control it. It's not yours. You can't reach out and grab all those people if you want to. You're reliant on the Facebook algorithm. And Twitter is now the same. They instituted an algorithm a few months ago, and now they're they're very similar to Facebook in that respect. It's no longer a running continuous time, stream as it used to be. So when you start talking about, when we start talking about platform, you're really talking about the power of your website and the structure of your email newsletters and the response to those email newsletters. Because that's something that you own, that you control, and that you can guaranteed reach out to everybody with it. Now they might not answer or do anything, but you can guarantee that you're going to get it to them.
Right.
So that's probably the strongest tool in the platform arsenal. But getting people to sign up for a newsletter is kind of a structured process. You have to have a way for them to sign up. For most people, it's a website. There's a sign-up link on a website. And then there's, how do you get them to do it? Do you offer them a free book? Do you entice them in with appealing blog posts? Are you just so cool that people want to join your book anyway, your newsletter anyway? So there's a system with that, and I think that that's different for every individual. At Third Scribe, we recognize that, and we say, some people are really active bloggers, and some people never blog. And so we made sure that our websites can be configured and structured in a way that is beneficial to however it is you want to do it. We just need to know how it is you want to do it, and we'll set it up for you that way. And we've been studying that actually a lot over the last year, about how people sign up for things, what entices them, what methods work better than others, and then to better help our authors, get their numbers. But it's readers now are very wary of these games. Matter of fact, there was just a thread I was following this morning about people sign up for a free book giveaway, and then they've gotten, emails from all these authors they never heard of. Well, that free book giveaway had 50 authors in it. They wanted 2 books, and but they signed up for 50 people's email newsletter, and now they have to subscribe from 48 of them, So, and then there was many readers on that thread said, yeah, I did that once and I'll never do it again. So they're getting very savvy, and I found that there's a limit to where they're going to go, and people are starting to look at the hassle factor, free book versus hassle factor. And that's, all these things get factored in.
Yeah, I experienced that recently because I signed up for one of those mass giveaways, and all of a sudden I start getting, a ton of emails from people I didn't know, and I'm afraid, like you said, that readers will kind of look at that as this is the latest gimmick, and it is going to sour people on the one of the greatest tools we have, our newsletter. What do you think that authors can do to make sure that we don't? Of course, we need things to entice people, but how do you balance that against getting into spammy territory?
Well, I think the way to avoid spammy territory is to not be spammy. We had on the service, we had 2 authors that participated in some big giveaways, and they got some large lists. And one of them came to us specifically because he had this large list, and he didn't want to pay $50 a month to MailChimp to use it, and so he became a standard member at ThirdScribe, and he gets the same benefits as MailChimp from us for $20 a month. So he was happy about that. But in return, I said, look, we've now had 2 authors here that have done this, and do you mind if I keep track of your metrics? And he was like, sure, I have no idea what metrics I'm even supposed to look at. So I being the service, they're paying, so we helped them get their newsletter together, and we kind of talked about it, both authors individually, I talked with them about it, and we kind of crafted this whole, look, let's face it, 5,900 something of these people have no idea who you are. They didn't sign up to get your book. So you got to win them over, and you got to do it in your first email, and it's got to be good. And both of them got some pretty good response out of it, but it was because they didn't go spammy. They didn't jump in and try to do a big sales pitch. They introduced themselves. They told themselves a little bit about them. They had, pictures of their family. They had their books. It wasn't super lengthy, but it was not spammy. It was like, hey, I'm a real person, and you can look at my blog posts, and I know you probably didn't anticipate hearing from me, but hey, I'm not a bad person. I hope you enjoyed the book. They got good response. I mean, not mind-blowing response, but I was expecting they were going to send out, this 6,000 emails, and they were going to get, 20 clicks and 500,
Right.
unsubscribes, and and then another couple hundred bounces. They didn't get very many bounces. They did not get very many unsubscribes, but they did get about 1,000 clicks each.
Nice.
And for one of them that's maintained it, when he sends a email list out, 600, 1,000 people click through, and that's a heck of a lot better than the 45 people he started with. So
well, and numbers like that can make the difference in whether an author decides to continue pursuing that. Lots of people. I've known lots of people that have were kind of starting in this about the time I was, and they've kind of dropped out because they just couldn't. They didn't get the kind of feedback that they expected, or it's not a. It's one of these things you just can't pursue forever without getting.
I mean, you need to make
those kind of numbers will make or break someone.
I think so. I mean, you need to have some type of thing, and again, for authors, it's way harder. We wrote a blog post last year at the beginning of the year saying book marketing 2016, understanding the game, and I wrote it, and I went over kind of the history about Kindle and growth and the ebook market and the difference between, say 2009 and 2015. When the Kindle launched, there were only 90,000 books on it. That's all. In 2015, there were over 4 million. I mean, that is a lot of competition. That is when you start talking about that, you are now in the realm of truly unlimited choice. No human being can go through all those books.
Right.
But you're also competing with it all. And so what people could get away with in 2009, 2010, is you just can't get away with now. And it's a tougher market. And readers are savvy, and they're looking for bargains, but they also want good stories that are well told, well written, in what they expect. And I think you gotta. It's tough.
Yeah. Well, running a service like ThirdScribe, and you mentioned earlier the data. What kind of things are you able to see on the back end that you then are able to give to the authors? What kind of information, what kind of trends are you tracking, and what sorts of things can someone like ThirdScribe offer to authors that you couldn't get just from running your own website?
Well, I don't think that there's anything we really provide that you can't get by running your own website. I mean, the one thing that we can do is that we see things also at a network level, so not just what you're doing, but what everyone else is doing.
Right, and that's what I meant, kind of aggregating all of that. So
we definitely get a broader trend, line, and we can kind of look at things at a bit more volume. So if you're just starting out, and you don't have any readership, your site alone probably isn't going to generate a tremendous amount of data. But when you package that under 50 other people who are just starting out, then we get to see certain things. And when you also add in more established authors, we have a couple of significant best-selling level authors, and you kind of get to start seeing kind of this aggregate of how things work. Part of that, it helps us with the system kind of figure out, well, what should we do to make it better? Like different systemic tweaks and things that we can do to make sure that people click more or see things better or whatever. But we also start kind of looking a lot about how things work in different ways. Many authors didn't realize that so much of their traffic is on mobile. Or last year we kind of said we were at 30% mobile. And we said, but we think we're going to be at 48% by the end of the year. Well, we topped that. We're at 54%.
Wow.
Of total network traffic is mobile, is from a mobile device. And a majority of that is from a phone. And a majority of those are iPhones. So literally, that is the highest device. And an iPhone is 43% of traffic is seen on an iPhone. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Well, 43% of mobile traffic is seen on an iPhone. I mean, that's huge. We see
that's nuts.
that people discount Twitter, but we've actually had more shares on Twitter than we have shares from Facebook as part of who shares blog posts. A lot of things get shared on Twitter, more than people expect. Everyone's like, Twitter's dead. And I'm like, well, not by my stats. Of the, 700,000 page views we had, 30% of them were shared on Twitter. It's
that's significant.
It is significant. We look at the effectiveness of what kind of page people click on. Are they picking on if your book is on a home page or on its own dedicated site in your page on your website, or if it's in a blog post, or if it's in a My Books page, like an index page on your site, which one is more effective? We looked at which one, how does that compare to the book pages on the network, the network itself. What's the effectiveness rate, and what are they really clicking on? Are they clicking on, where are the clicks coming from? One thing is we do kind of anonymize the data a little bit in that I don't track particularly like what the click was. Like if someone clicks on a Kindle purchase, right now, clicks on a Kindle button, I know where that happened, but I don't know exactly what they clicked on. So if you had 20 books on a My Books page of your website, I couldn't tell you when it was clicked on. I mean, I could guess, but I can't tell you. I can only tell you it came from then, from that location,
right?
And what time. And so I'm not sure why we did that. I guess because we didn't want to get too in your business, but we wanted to, you know what I mean? Like we kind of wanted to. I didn't like it that like on Facebook, everyone kind of, Facebook probably knows more about me than my mother. And I didn't want to kind of be that way, but I did want to make sure that we produce something of value. So I was looking at, well, what's the minimum viable product? What can I say that this is data that I'm interested in, but I'm not getting too crazy in your business. And so I settled on that. But authors also can, since authors have control of the purchase links, if they want to use a smart link or a bit.ly or some other tracking link to get even more data, they're welcome to if they want to use their own data. We welcome it.
That's really interesting that you mentioned the whole Facebook and Twitter and all of that. As far as this podcast, we get very little traffic from Facebook. It's actually kind of stunning sometimes when I look at kind of traffic sources, and it's kind of our default place that we go to publicize and promote stuff. And I think it's just becoming less and less relevant and viable, which is really odd because everybody's there. Most of the traffic that we get is people coming directly to the site or from Reddit. We get a ton of traffic from Reddit, way more than Facebook, Twitter, or anything else combined. It's pretty crazy. But those platforms are constantly changing, and I think a lot of people have kind of put, kind of like we're talking about with Amazon, people have put all their eggs in their Facebook basket, thinking that because, I have all these connections there that it's actually doing something for me. And I think there's just a lot of noise there with very little signal.
I tell the authors, because a lot of people want to your Facebook message me. That's become almost the go-to to get support. And I always turn them around and say, no, look, there's a support ticket system in your site. Please use it. Because I can't track it. As soon as someone's gone, it's gone. So at the end of the day, I'm trying to go through and make sure we got everything, and I'm going to miss something because it's scrolled out of view somewhere. But I tell them, I said, look, Facebook's for talking to your mom. Emails for business. And I think that's hard for a lot of them to get, and that's why I said, again, because you have this, you feel like you have a rapport with your interactions on social media. And we're harping on Facebook because it's the biggest, but it's not just Facebook, it's all of them.
Right.
But the reality is that a like on Facebook isn't a page view. And it's not a sale. It's a like, it's a thing. It's an endorphin rush. It's not a concrete, return. And so I think that's kind of hard to get people to wean off of and realize that that's great for interaction and a little bit of light community building, but recognize that Facebook and Twitter both, the AIs that run their algorithms are focused on making your circle smaller and smaller and smaller because they want to make your time there more and more relevant. So of the, say, 600 friends you have, you probably only talk to 20 at any time, because that's the most that you're really keeping up with. Maybe upwards of 50, but you're not dealing with 600. And they're not dealing with you either. You're not going to see them. So it's like I said, a platform should be something that you control. And if you're not in control of it, then it's not your platform. That's just kind of how it is.
And which brings us back around again to, you really need to be managing your own web presence and not depending on a social network, and whichever one is in vogue at the moment. It's like you said, we're picking on Facebook because they're the biggest, but that's kind of irrelevant. It's whatever that place is, that is the easy go-to. We need to be bringing people back to our own platform that we have control over and that we manage. And I think a lot of people are understanding that, people are realizing that Facebook is not the internet. I think a lot of people, turn on their computer and they go directly to Facebook, and that has become the internet to them. But I hope that we're seeing some things trend back to people managing their own sites. I still use an RSS reader because there's several sites that I keep up with and I read on a daily basis, and I really make a conscious effort to not go to Facebook to get my news and in-depth kind of analysis that I'm looking for. But how? So we've convinced everybody that they need to manage their own platform. But how do we get people to that platform?
Well, everybody asks that. Actually, I'm kind of I've made it a thing. I've talked about this a couple of years about putting a course together, kind of something very comprehensive on book marketing. You could probably use it for just about anything, but I would focus on books. And we kind of struggled with how we wanted to deliver that course, and we finally actually cracked that nut and got it figured out. So now I have to go ahead and finish it. But I'll give you a preview here, and one of those is how does book marketing work, and how does your platform work? And most people really don't have an idea because it's not one thing. Realize that if you're an author, the most powerful form of content marketing, if you want to call it that, the most powerful tool in your tool chest is not your website or your social media or anything. It's the book itself. The book is it. The book is what people talk about. The book is what sells. The book is what transfers and lives on someone's device full time. The book is what someone's going to be looking at, for hours or days on end as they read it. I mean, that is literally the most powerful thing that you have. So sometimes I ask people, okay, well, is there anything in your book that might guide them to buy your next book or to join your newsletter or anything like that? And usually they say, well, no. And so I said, well, you should fix that first. Just start there. Because now you want to get into the situation where you have, what we used to call in the service the self-licking ice cream cone. I want to give you the book, and then that should be leading you to more books or to more ways for me to get you books, and that's what you want. So no matter what, I think that your book should be the best possible book that you can make. And a lot of people blow that off when I say that too. And I've talked with other authors and other people in the field, and they all say the same thing. They said, everyone says, oh, of course the book has to be good. And I said, no, seriously, don't blow this off. Make the book the best book you possibly can. Seriously. And if you don't think it's that great, toss it and write another one. One of the things that I've found fascinating, because I listen to your podcast a lot, is that so many of the authors that come on board have written, almost every single one of them that I've listened to in the last, say 6 months, has referred to the trunk novel. And it's right. Always like, well, I wrote, 10 trunk novels. I think Michael Sullivan, he said he wrote 12,
yes.
10 or 12 trunk novels, and they never saw the light of day. And then he saw one that he liked, and it became, there it is, the Rare Chronicles. Bam.
Right.
I see a lot of people that just, they write and they want to publish, And I almost say, look, if it's your first one, you really ought to, maybe that's a trunk novel. Maybe you want to write another one. Maybe you want to practice more. And again, I've never read their book. It might be a great one. I mean, Andy Weir pretty much I won't say it was his first shot off the bat, but it was pretty darn close. Bam, was The Martian. Yeah. I mean, lightning strikes happen, miracles happen, but he put a lot of time and effort into that book too. That wasn't something right. He just wrote on a month.
And it went through multiple revisions.
Right. And so, I just say that if that book is so powerful, I mean, it is your most powerful tool. So you have to make sure it's good. The cover art has to be good. The blurb has to be good. It has to be good. And inside that book has to be ways to find your website and to join your newsletter. And then because a lot of times people don't find you through your newsletter, they find you through also bots and Amazon, or there was a share in a social feed, or a friend recommended it. So they might not have come to you through your website. They came to you through Amazon or through Barnes & Noble or through Kobo or through somebody. So you need to find a way to get them back to you that's easy. So I'm a big fan of having that in the book at the beginning and at the end of the book. Some way to get back to you. And if you're going to offer a free book, make sure it's in there. Hey, if you join my newsletter, you get a free book. Say it. Go ahead and say it in there.
Right.
And then your website has to be able to back it all up.
Right. I like to watch my kids. My 3 girls are all huge readers. So are my 2 sons. But they all like different things, and I like to talk to them and to watch how they discover things. Because kind of being in the position where I am, and talking to so many writers, interviewing so many, publishing myself, you get this real incestuous sort of kind of view of things. You don't really understand how the real world works anymore, because we're all working our own algorithms and trying the things that we saw work one time. So let's go duplicate that and try that. And sometimes it's good just to get away from all of that stuff and go talk to people that love books and figure out how they found the thing that they love. And more times than not, and when I'm talking to my kids, like my youngest daughter came home today and she said, "Dad, you have to get me this book." And we pulled it up on Amazon, and she said, "A friend of mine told me about it, and then another friend told me about it, and it's the most amazing thing ever. We've got to get this book."
Oh, yeah. Word of mouth is no joke. Word of mouth is the killer.
Word of mouth is no joke. So yeah, I absolutely back up what you said. Make the book the book. It's got to be, you've got to have that factor where someone is just dying to tell someone else about your book. We can manipulate algorithms all day long, but if someone doesn't love your book, Melinda Lee, who was on the show last week, talked to her earlier this week. Her first book that she wrote was a success. But it was a book that she reworked until it became the book that it is now. And so even though she didn't have a trunk novel, she kind of worked on that book until it became what it is. And more and more, that's the piece of advice that I'm hearing, and it's really resonating. I'm glad you picked up on that as well.
No, I just think it's really important. It seems like I see a lot of young authors, or new authors at least, that they're just in a hurry to publish. Like there's an expiration date or something on their idea. They don't get it out, it's just going to die. And I don't think that's true. And sometimes I think a lot of that, if you rush it, you might regret it.
Well, I think a lot of that attitude comes, Rob, from a lot of the advice that was going around a year, 2, 3 ago, where there were several very well-known writers who were kind of reporting on the Kindle revolution as it happened. And you got the idea that you needed to get content out, and as soon as you finished one, you needed to crank out another, and another, and another, and you had to build your back catalog as fast as you could, so that when lightning did strike that one time, you could then sell someone a whole boatload of stuff. And there's, we all know authors that's happened for. They find that one thing that becomes popular, and then they have a ton of sales because people like them. But like, you pointed out earlier, there, how many millions of books in the Kindle store now, and you just can't do that anymore. You've got to find that book that people talk about.
I think that, depending on who you are, you can, but most people are not that person. And a lot of people that were giving that advice back then were B-listers before the Kindle revolution. They had been published, they had gone through publishers, maybe they liked the experience or didn't like the experience, but they had gone through this, and they weren't putting up their first novels. At least a lot of them weren't. Some were, but A lot of them had already gone through a little bit of the crucible, didn't find that the success that they wanted in mainstream publishing, for many reasons that probably had nothing to do with their talent. But then, when the floodgates were open, they had a chance to, put things in their own hands and were able to make something out of it. But again, I mean, it's kind of like elite athletes, like I can't train like an elite athlete. And an Olympian will tell you, well, it's all about training. You have to train 6 hours every day. If I trained 6 hours every day, I'd be dead.
Right.
Like not everyone can do everything, and not everyone can follow the same path to get to where they want to go. And I think that a good bit of it is also things accelerate. Nick Cole, one of our authors, he used to be like 2 years between books. Now it's like 6 months. He's just he writes faster. His ideas come better. Like those muscles have been more and more used, and it's just gotten easier and easier for him. And and he's developed his process for how he gets these things done, and they're all great. I love his writing. I'm a big fan. But he didn't start out that fast. He is that fast now. So it's it is a process. It is a journey. And you get better at it the longer you do it. But rushing, I don't think is helpful.
Yeah, I agree. Rob, you wrote a blog post a couple of weeks ago, and it's something that I have been working on personally myself for a while. You hinted at the fact that you were just kind of worn out and fried, and not sleeping well, and just kind of, things getting away from you. I think a lot of authors, especially because most writers, when they're starting out, we're working a day job, we have families, all of these responsibilities, but then we also have this passion, this thing that we just feel like we need to get out. So we stay up all hours of the night, burning the candle at both ends to write that book. And then, of course, after you write the book, you've got to market and you've got to network and all that stuff that comes with it. And eventually you wake up one day and you're just worn out. Kind of what have you learned, and what can you share with maybe some of the folks out there that are on the grind and are kind of coming to the end of themselves?
Take a break. And I mean it. I mean, I think that I had been pushing hard for a while when I wrote that blog post. I was exhausted. I had been exhausted before I wrote it, and I was just I'm sleeping like maybe 4 hours a night max. Working all day, taking care of kids. Being with my family. We have busy weekends. I have 3 young children. They've always got something. And so you want to spend time with them. You want to spend time with your wife. You want to do a good job at your day job, and you are taking care of all the other things that you do. And I found that I just couldn't. I mean, you just can't keep doing it. And you read this in startup journals and business magazines and Medium and whatever about saying, hey, you need to work out. You need to take some time for yourself. You can't be a founder that just burns yourself into the ground. And I think that's true with everything, whether you're a startup founder or a business person or an author. There comes a point where there really is a work-life balance, and you have to respect that. And you push it for a while. And maybe, depending on who you are, you might be able to push it for a long while. But there comes a point where you just can't do it anymore. And you have to take kind of that break and let things wind down. And learn to take care of yourself a little bit. What do they call it? Self-care? Whatever the term is of the day. But the problem is, if you run yourself into the ground, you're going to run everything into the ground. So you just have to take a little time, take a break and step back from it. And it's hard because if you've been doing it long enough, you kind of get addicted to it. You feel something in your bones that you have to keep doing something. There's something I need to be doing. Yeah, that something is take a freaking nap, like go and get 10 hours of sleep for once,
Right.
Get some, maybe that would help more than trying to type out one more paragraph or something. I mean, there comes a point where you're just kind of, you gotta be done.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard to let go.
It is. I think a lot of writers, you hear the advice that to be a great writer, you need to read a lot, and I think a lot of writers come to the realization that they haven't read anything in a while because they don't have time to.
Yeah.
There's no time for enjoyment, and even I read a ton of books for research for this podcast because when I talk to someone, I like to understand a little bit about what they do and kind of so that I can connect with them.
You lucked out with me this week because I don't write anything.
Oh. No, that's not true, and I want you to talk about that in just a minute. But I found that I need to take some time to read something that I want to read just because I want to read it, and not that is kind of leading me to a purpose or to an end game. And that makes a huge difference in me. It makes me feel better. It gives me new ideas and keeps my creative process fresh. So yeah, if you feel like you cannot walk away from something, there's a problem. And sometimes that's our publishing career, that maybe we need to just take a break for a minute and get our priorities straight.
No, I think so. I when I first kind of started this, I had some advisors, and I remember we were out on a kind of a little bit of a retreat, and they were very instrumental with helping me figure out the business model of Third Scribe and go through things, and it was really, really a great benefit to talk with them. And we were probably in for, I don't know, it was maybe 6 months in at that point, and one of them said, "Hey, well, you've got to jump on this, you have to do this, you have to do that." And I said, "Well, hold on a second." And I said, "I can't do that." And he was like, "Well, why not? You need to do this." And I said, "Look, there's a limit. I got 3 young kids. I'm transitioning my career at that point with the military. I was like, I kind of have to do all these things. And there's a point where if I push much harder, I'm going to start really losing family. And I was like, and I know a lot of people in my position that are on their second or third wife. And it's like, if you did that, then in my opinion, for my own personal goals, then that was kind of a fail, because if you're going through all this stuff and you're working all these extra things and you're taking on this new responsibility, and a big motivation of that is to be able to have a better life for your family, and you lose your family in the process, then you kind of failed, that you didn't meet your goal.
Yep.
And so I said, I have to kind of pace. There might be some opportunities that I need to grab onto, but I also have other opportunities that I am not going to miss. They might not be financial, but they are very personal. And I think that that's something that everyone has to find for themselves. But it's something that you have to respect. And it's just, like I said, that balance is important. And it doesn't matter if you're an author or a businessman, a startup founder, in anything. It's you got to do that. And it's tough.
Yeah. That's solid advice. Rob, when are you publishing a book?
Man, I don't know. I feel like I should 2 years ago. I said I would finish one, and I remember last summer I told Ellen I was getting close, and she was licking her lips because she's read portions of my writing over the years, and then I got sucked into some other thing, and I haven't written a word. So I was reading some things yesterday, this past week, and I was like, I really need to go back and finish that. I think it would be awesome. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those, what was it, Eleanor situations where it took 12 years to write it. I think I'm going to take 12 years to write mine.
Well, just promise me that you'll debut it on Author Stories.
I would. I would love to come back.
Well, Rob, thanks for taking time to come on the show and kind of shine a little bit of a light on authors and kind of what we can do to make it to be more successful. Thank you so much for doing that. Where can people find you and Third Scribe, and if they're not familiar with Third Scribe, what can people expect from it?
Well, thirdscribe.com, you believe me, you can always find me there. And what you can expect from it is I think, a very nice, friendly, book atmosphere. We really focus very hard on the books. Our book pages are like nothing else. We aren't ad-based, so we really use the space to highlight and sell the books and make it a really nice and pleasant experience for authors and readers alike. For authors, I can assure you, you will never get the level of support and tool set and service anywhere than you would at Third Scribe. I mean, that is a fact. And at a better price. We're cheaper than any other option in any category at any time. And we focus that. We built the levels strategically to handle the needs of authors at different points in their career. So if you're just starting out, it's $1 a month for a website, and for an email newsletter, and for slide outs and pop-ups and basic support. You can't get that anywhere. As you get more successful and your things grow, it's $20 a month if you're a mid-list level author, and if you're a premium author, it's $54.99, which sounds expensive, but I mean, for example, we had a premium author the other day. He was out and about. He was literally on a hike. He sends me a text on his phone and says, I think I'd really like to send a newsletter out, and let's combine it with a giveaway, and I'd like to make it on this blog post, and let's make a contest out of it. What do you think? And I said, well, let's try this. And he's like, great, let's make it happen. And that's it. He didn't do anything after that. We made a newsletter, we put the graphics together, we put it all together, and we sent it out. I mean, that's the level of service. You can't get that anywhere. That doesn't happen anywhere else. But we do that because we're focused specifically on authors and no other segment. And so we're streamlined to support them. So I think that regardless of whether you're a reader, we have a extremely nice environment. And when you're an author, you have tools and someone looking out for you that you would never get anywhere else.
Awesome. Rob, thanks so much for coming on the show. And as always, there are links in the show notes. Everybody go check out thirdscribe.com and let Rob and the great folks over there help you make your author platform all that it can be. Thanks for coming on the show, Rob.
Thank you, Hank. It's always a pleasure.
Stay tuned now for a clip from Richard Gleb's General of the Dead.
The cemetery had fallen into a hush. There were no traffic noises here. They were far from Broadway, far from anything. They could have been walking in an ancient glen. They passed a great Celtic cross of green copper, a combination of the Christian cross and the pagan sun deity, if Jason remembered his grave symbols. An old design, from the days when Western religions were first passing the mythological baton. Valerie led them to the crest of a hill. Jason felt a stab of incredulity. A vast acreage of graves spread below. The size of it was hard to fathom. So many people under the ground. The field of headstones felt bewildering and frightening and sad, like an empty playground littered with abandoned baby shoes.
"Look at it,"
Valerie said with distaste.
"I have never liked cemeteries. Too physical. All those mortal remains, bound to a patch of earth, hemmed in by a fence. Spirits caught in a trap. Like dogs in a kennel."
"Hey," said Joey, "that's my cemetery you're talking about."
"This cemetery doesn't belong to you."
She patted Joey's shoulder.
"Not to anybody living. It belongs to the dead."
She raised an arm.
"Cemeteries are cities. Cities for ghosts. It's their land, not ours. And in every graveyard, like every city, there's a leader. All others answer to him. Or her. To the
dominant spirit," whispered Jason. "That's what Irving called him. In the legend." He snapped his fingers, searching for the quote. The dominant spirit that haunts this enchanted region and seems to be commander-in-chief of all the powers of the air is the apparition of a figure on horseback without a head. Joey rolled his eyes. Oh my God, he's got it memorized. Jason scowled. Shut up. Valerie nodded.
The dominant spirit. If the horseman has risen, if he's the strongest, then all the others, the minor spirits, the weaker ones, will obey him. They can't be at rest if he doesn't let them be.
So, said Jason, he's summoning the minor spirits. He's enslaving them.
It's an awful thing when the dominant spirit is a dark one. It corrupts the ground. It keeps the souls here from finding peace. A dark spirit will cave the ground in over its own head. Things will stop growing, twist and decay. Even the living won't find solace there. If you walk past a graveyard and you fear it, you can be sure that the dominant spirit is a dark one.
Thanks for listening to the Author Stories podcast. Join me each Tuesday and Friday at hankgarner.com for a new episode. Thanks for listening.